What if I told you that behind every powerful president stood a woman with secrets the public never knew? The First Ladies of the United States have always been in the spotlight, but their private passions remained hidden for decades, until now. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the secret loves, hidden talents, and forbidden hobbies that these remarkable women kept from the American public. Get ready, because some of these revelations will completely change how you see America's most famous women. Let's start with one of the most shocking secrets in White House history. Martha Washington, known as the dignified mother of the nation, had a secret passion that would surprise everyone. While George led armies and founded a country, Martha was secretly obsessed with theater and performance. In an era when theater was considered scandalous and improper for respectable women, Martha attended plays in disguise, wearing simple clothing to blend with common crowds. She memorized entire Shakespeare performances and would recite them privately to close friends. This secret love of drama stayed hidden because it could have damaged George's reputation during the founding years of America. Dolly Madison's secret was even more daring. Everyone knows she saved the portrait of George Washington during the War of 1812, but few realize her true passion: political strategy and espionage. Dolly wasn't just a gracious hostess, she was running intelligence operations from her parlor. She'd host lavish parties where foreign diplomats would drink too much and reveal state secrets, which she'd carefully document and pass to her husband. Dolly had a coded journal system where she recorded every political conversation, creating what was essentially the first White House intelligence network. Her gatherings weren't social events, they were strategic operations disguised as parties. Mary Todd Lincoln carried a secret that haunted her throughout her life. Beyond her well-documented struggles with mental health, Mary had a passionate interest in spiritualism and seances. After losing her son Willie to typhoid fever, she became obsessed with contacting the dead. Mary secretly held seances in the White House Red Room, inviting mediums to conduct sessions while Abraham was working late. She believed she could communicate with Willie and would spend hours attempting to reach him. Lincoln knew about these sessions but kept them private to protect Mary from public ridicule. The press caught wind of the seances only years later, but the full extent of Mary's spiritual obsession remained hidden until letters were discovered decades after her death. Moving into the 20th century, Edith Wilson had perhaps the most consequential secret passion: power itself. When Woodrow Wilson suffered a massive stroke in 1919, Edith didn't just support her husband, she became a shadow president. For 17 months, she controlled access to the president, made executive decisions, and essentially ran the country. But here's what history books don't emphasize: Edith loved every minute of it. Private letters reveal she was exhilarated by the power and influence. She'd always been fascinated by politics and governance but had no avenue to exercise that passion until fate, and her husband's illness, gave her the opportunity. Some historians argue she prolonged his presidency specifically because she didn't want to give up that power. Eleanor Roosevelt's secret passion was far more personal and deeply hidden. While publicly championing social causes and civil rights, Eleanor was privately in love with journalist Lorena Hickok. Their relationship, documented through thousands of intimate letters, revealed a passionate romance that Eleanor kept secret her entire public life. Beyond this relationship, Eleanor had another secret passion. She wrote romantic fiction under a pseudonym. These stories, discovered among her papers, showed a deeply romantic side that contrasted sharply with her serious public image. She poured her emotions into these fictional tales, creating the love stories she couldn't publicly live. Mamie Eisenhower presented herself as the perfect 1950s housewife, but she had a secret vice that shocked White House staff: gambling. Mamie loved high-stakes card games, particularly canasta and poker. She'd organize secret card games with wealthy Washington socialites where thousands of dollars changed hands. Ike knew about her gambling but couldn't stop it, so he just tried to keep it quiet. Staff members were sworn to secrecy, and journalists who discovered her habit were persuaded to kill their stories. Mamie's passion for cards was so intense that she'd play until dawn, sometimes losing focus on her First Lady duties the next day. Jackie Kennedy's public image was one of grace and sophistication, but she harbored a secret passion for pulp fiction and detective novels. While everyone assumed she read French literature and classical texts, Jackie was actually obsessed with murder mysteries and crime thrillers. She'd order them in bulk under false names and read them voraciously late at night. She particularly loved hard-boiled detective stories and would discuss plot theories with Secret Service agents who shared her interest. This guilty pleasure remained largely unknown because it didn't fit the refined image she carefully cultivated. Lady Bird Johnson's beautification campaigns were public knowledge, but her secret passion was far more controversial. She was an aggressive businesswoman and investor who built a fortune in radio and television. While Lyndon was in politics, Lady Bird was making shrewd business deals, leveraging her husband's political connections to secure broadcasting licenses. She kept this mostly quiet because it could appear as a conflict of interest, but behind the scenes, she was a ruthless negotiator who understood media power before most politicians did. Pat Nixon's secret passion was one of the most closely guarded in White House history. While publicly supporting her husband through scandals and political battles, Pat was privately writing a detailed diary that revealed her true feelings about politics, her marriage, and Washington society. These journals, which she never intended to publish, showed a sharp, cynical wit completely opposite to her public persona of the loyal, silent wife. She wrote scathing observations about political figures, diplomatic events, and even about Richard himself. Pat requested these diaries be destroyed upon her death, but some copies survived, revealing a woman far more complex and bitter than anyone knew. Betty Ford shocked America by openly discussing her breast cancer, but her secret passion went deeper than advocacy. Betty was fascinated by modern dance and had actually auditioned to join the Martha Graham Dance Company in her youth. Throughout her life, even as First Lady, she'd practiced dance routines privately in the White House residence. She'd invite professional dancers for secret sessions where she'd learn contemporary choreography, moving her body in ways that would scandalize conservative Americans who expected First Ladies to remain still and dignified. Dance was her escape, her rebellion, and her connection to the woman she was before politics consumed her life. Rosalind Carter appeared devoted solely to mental health advocacy and supporting Jimmy, but she had a secret intellectual passion. She was obsessed with military strategy and war history. Rosalind read extensively about military campaigns, studied tactical decisions, and even attended classified military briefings not typically available to First Ladies. She'd debate military advisors and occasionally influence Jimmy's defense decisions. The military establishment was uncomfortable with her involvement, and the administration kept her interest quiet to avoid criticism about a First Lady involving herself in military matters. Nancy Reagan's public image was all about "just say no" and devoted support for Ronnie, but she had a secret that would have mortified her conservative base. Nancy regularly consulted astrologers to guide White House decisions. Joan Quigley, a San Francisco astrologer, had enormous influence over Nancy, who would consult star charts before major events. Nancy didn't just check her horoscope. She used astrology to schedule presidential appearances, international summits, and even influenced policy timing. When this was revealed, it caused a scandal, but the full extent of Nancy's reliance on astrological guidance remained partially hidden. Barbara Bush presented herself as everyone's grandmother, warm and non-political, but she had a fierce secret passion. She was intensely political and often disagreed sharply with George's advisors. Behind closed doors, Barbara would argue policy with cabinet members, sometimes reducing grown men to silence with her sharp tongue. She was particularly passionate about environmental protection and women's rights, positions sometimes at odds with Republican Party orthodoxy. Barbara kept these views mostly private to avoid complicating George's presidency, but those close to the administration knew she wielded considerable influence over his decisions. Hillary Clinton's secret passion was something she could never fully embrace publicly. Hillary loved true crime. Not just reading about it, she was obsessed with unsolved murders and cold cases. She'd spend hours researching criminal cases, studying forensic techniques, and discussing theories with law enforcement officials. This interest stemmed from her legal background, but it went deeper. Hillary found the puzzle-solving aspect of criminal investigation thrilling. She even corresponded with detectives working cold cases, occasionally offering insights. This hobby remained mostly hidden because it seemed at odds with her serious policy-focused image. Laura Bush, a former librarian with a gentle public demeanor, had a secret passion that surprised those who knew about it. She loved fast cars and speed. Laura had taken defensive driving courses and occasionally convinced Secret Service to let her drive presidential vehicles at high speeds on closed tracks. She'd grown up around Texas car culture and never lost her love of horsepower and velocity. Staff members occasionally saw her watching NASCAR races alone, analyzing racing strategies with an expertise that seemed completely at odds with her quiet librarian image. Michelle Obama publicly championed healthy eating and exercise, but she had a secret guilty pleasure: late-night junk food binges. After long days of public appearances and healthy eating demonstrations, Michelle would raid the White House kitchen for the foods she publicly discouraged others from eating. Staff members knew to stock specific snacks for her midnight runs to the kitchen. This wasn't hypocrisy, it was human. Michelle believed in healthy living but also believed in balance and not being perfect. She kept this private because she knew critics would use it against her healthy eating initiatives. Melania Trump's secret passion was architecture and interior design on a level few realized. While publicly maintaining a traditional First Lady image, Melania was intensely involved in design decisions not just for White House renovations but for policy on federal buildings. She'd study architectural plans, understand structural engineering, and debate designers about aesthetic choices. This passion stemmed from her European background where design is taken more seriously. She kept this involvement quiet because the administration didn't want her seen as influencing policy beyond traditional First Lady roles. Jill Biden's secret passion is actually something she's slowly revealing. She's a thrill seeker who loves adventure sports. Before becoming First Lady, Jill had taken up activities like parasailing, jet skiing, and even contemplated skydiving. She maintains an adventurous spirit that her professional educator persona doesn't fully convey. Security concerns have limited these activities, but staff members report she still seeks out physical challenges whenever possible, sometimes to the frustration of Secret Service agents who must secure increasingly adventurous excursions. Going back further into history reveals even more surprising secrets. Lou Henry Hoover spoke 5 languages fluently, but her real secret passion was that she was a trained geologist who had worked professionally in the field, something almost unheard of for women of her era. Lou had translated important mining texts from Latin and was consulted by professional geologists. She kept this somewhat quiet during Herbert's presidency because having a professionally trained, scientifically accomplished First Lady was seen as potentially threatening to men in power. Lou would secretly correspond with geological societies and continued her scientific work under the radar. Grace Coolidge loved baseball with an intensity that bordered on obsession. She wasn't just a casual fan. Grace understood statistics, player performance metrics, and strategic decisions at a level that impressed professional coaches. She'd attend games incognito and had season tickets to the Boston Red Sox that she used well into her elderly years. This passion continued long after Calvin's death, and she'd often travel to games when many women her age couldn't leave home without assistance. Baseball was her escape and her joy. Florence Harding had the most scandalous secret passion of any early First Lady. She actively believed in and practiced astrology and fortune-telling, consulting with Madame Marcia, a Washington mystic, to guide her husband's political decisions. Florence would arrange her schedule, suggest policy timing, and even influence Warren's cabinet selections based on astrological readings. This went far beyond casual interest. She was a true believer who saw cosmic forces guiding American politics. When this became known, it was downplayed, but Florence never stopped her consultations with mystics and astrologers. Sarah Polk, First Lady in the 1840s, had a secret that would have been explosive if widely known. She was the true political strategist behind James Polk's presidency. Sarah didn't just support her husband. She crafted his political positions, wrote his speeches, and managed his political relationships. She'd meet with political leaders privately and negotiate deals without James present. Sarah's passion was raw political power and strategy, but as a woman in the 1840s, she had to exercise it entirely in the shadows. Frances Cleveland, the youngest First Lady who married President Grover Cleveland when she was only 21, had a secret passion for photography. She'd take hundreds of pictures with her personal camera, documenting her life in ways that gave her control over her image. Frances understood the power of photography before most politicians and would carefully curate which images could be published. She used this hobby to maintain some privacy in an era when her youth and beauty made her a media sensation. Helen Taft had an ambitious secret passion. She wanted to be president herself. Private writings revealed Helen saw herself as the true political mind in her marriage to William Howard Taft, who she pushed relentlessly toward the presidency. Helen's passion wasn't supporting her husband, it was exercising political power through him. She attended cabinet meetings, influenced appointments, and made policy suggestions. When a stroke limited her public activities, Helen was devastated not because of health concerns but because it removed her from the political